Welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I am Tim Capper. You can find me on Twitter at Repact. That's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can also find me on Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called nowadays, at Cliffy D. And this episode of the Alouettes Flight Deck is presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where right now, if you use the promo code ALSFlightDeck10 at checkout, you will save 10% off your entire order. Head on over to www.sportbuffshop.com, use the code, save some money, and as always, folks, support local.
Have you missed any of the previous episodes of the Alouettes Flight Deck? Well, don't worry. They're all available over on our archive, and that can be found at www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. We're also on social media. You can find us on Twitter at AlouettesFLDeck, Facebook over at Alouettes Flight Deck Pod, Instagram over at Alouettes Flight Deck, and the same thing too for our Threads account that is also over at Alouettes Flight Deck. YouTube, where we have all the past episodes of the podcast and of our Flight Deck Live episodes, which will be available ASAP after they are shot. You can find that over at youtube.com/Alouettes Flight Deck. And if you want to rep our merchandise, whether it be in the city or around the world, you can head over to teespring.com/stores/Owls Flight Deck. And also, hey, Cliff, we can't forget, and it's the best thing to do right off the bat, my friend. We do have an interview this week, and it is a must-listen to, in my opinion. But we will be speaking with Wesley Sutton, current DB, obviously, with the Alouettes, where he talks about his career and about what he thinks about the current 2023 Alouettes. So stay tuned for that interview, Cliff, because it's a pretty good one.
Absolutely. It was definitely a treat to be able to speak with Wesley, and it was short but sweet. We had a chance to speak with him this evening and got to learn quite a bit about this young man and the impact that he's had on this team defensively. So, folks, make sure you're tuning in for that. But first, we've got a game to recap, and we talked about it a little bit on the last episode of Flight Deck Live, but I think it bears repeating just how incredible this victory was this past Friday against the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Yeah, oh, no kidding. I mean, it is this team seems to be gelling at the right time. Obviously, there were a couple of, what I guess Rider fans could say were a couple of circumstances when it came to the Riders coming into Montreal. It was on a short week, but it seems that all teams have short weeks no matter where they're coming in from. But again, the Alouettes did what they needed to do. It was another opponent. It was their chance to continuously to go 1-0 each week, and then that's what they were able to do. I mean, it's the scoreboard itself says it all, Cliff? I mean, the Alouettes came away with a 41-12 shellacking of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and with all honesty, dude, it was never close.
No, not really. I feel like Saskatchewan was just constantly chasing the Alouettes' tail, and it didn't feel like there was any sort of threat from them as far as like trying to match the Alouettes. Like the Alouettes came in, and right off the bat, there was a little bit of a surprise because Cody Fajardo had, throughout practice the week before, had said he wasn't sure if he was going. They weren't sure if he was going to play or not, or what was happening, but they kept their cards close to the vest when it came to deciding whether or not he was going to play. And sure enough, he dressed. He went to warm-ups, but ultimately just before kickoff, the Alouettes announced that Cody Fajardo would be the third-string quarterback last Friday, and instead, the honor of playing goes to one Caleb Evans.
Yeah, that's true, man. I mean, it's first start, I think, since being in Ottawa, since coming over here from Ottawa. Obviously a completely different type of quarterback than Cody Fajardo. I mean, obviously, Caleb is known for his running ability. He is, if I'm not mistaken, he is the current record holder for most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in a single season. So he said that last year in Ottawa. So we do know that he has one. He's just more than a one-trick pony. Let's just put it that way. So. And
yeah, he was typically being used for short yardage this year, but still managed to stick in for a couple plays here and there, and again did not look awful in doing so. So he, as far as I'm concerned, he was given the opportunity to show what he can do, and certainly it was not a perfect game by any stretch, but he certainly did get a chance to show what he could do, and it was actually quite impressive.
Oh, I know. Considering that he only went 8 of 13 for the entire game, and considering that the
That
Alouettes did
that
score
that
41 points.
See, that part wasn't so impressive, but it's all the other stuff that he did in the meantime, and the incorporation of the ground game, and just making the right decisions. I mean, again, not perfect. He unfortunately was, he did have one interception, but
Yeah, in the red zone. Yep, in the red zone.
yeah, but by and large, though, I hate using the term game manager, but that is what he did. He did manage this game. All he had to do was not making mistakes. And truthfully, aside from the one pick, and he was sacked a couple of times, but I mean, truthfully, he played a pretty decent game considering he didn't 100% know if he was going to go or not. So, got to give credit to Caleb Evans. Give credit to this organization for making sure that he was as ready as possible. And really, truly, I mean, this was a team effort as far as getting this victory. Just how all three facets of the football just looked absolutely dominant against this Rough Riders team.
It really did seem that as if the Alouettes had a game A and a game B plan, so to speak, because with the uncertainty with Cody Fajardo and if he was going to start or not. I was quite impressed because we're usually under the impression that the first 15 plays are scripted for each game. On offense. And if they actually had come up with technically 30 different plays, depending on which quarterback it was, what a job that they, what a great job that they did.
Yeah. And not just 15 different plays for like plan A and plan B, but also too, let's not forget William Stanback didn't play as well. So you also had to incorporate Walter Fletcher. And boy, oh, how did they ever incorporate Walter Fletcher into this offense?
Oh, Fletch did an absolute amazing job. I mean, I know we'll talk about the stats, more in depth in a couple of minutes here, but dude, the Alouettes had close to 190 total yards in rushing between Caleb Evans, Jeshua Antwi, and Walter Fletcher. That's amazing. I mean, that's the type of game that's up there with the last 200-yard game from William Stanback. And again, it may have been 3 people, but each of them did their job.
Yeah, and it's actually funny. After the game, we talked with head coach Jason Moss, and I said to him, I know you had said throughout the week that, as far as you and Cody were concerned, this is just another game, even though it was against your former team. But I asked him, like, you got to admit, it has to be pretty sweet, considering one of the biggest criticisms against you last year was your abandoning of the run, to be able to have Antwi, Fletcher, and Evans basically run roughshod over the Rough Riders. That's got to be a little bit sweet. And he kind of cracked a smile. I was like, I'm not going to lie, that is pretty sweet. And yeah, he said the circumstances were a little different in Saskatchewan. So, I mean, there's a lot that really hasn't come out in regards to that. But, I mean, as far as Moss is concerned, though, that's in the past. And the past is way behind him. Like, he's just focusing on the here and the now. And just, I think there was a very big part of him that was glad to not have to deal with this whole playing your former team thing. But I'm pretty sure that he's walked away extremely proud of these guys and feeling just a little bit of relief knowing that, okay, I was able to, not show up necessarily the Rough Riders, but show that, hey, I'm not who you think I was. As far as, some of the coaching woes that happened with Moss in Saskatchewan last year, he's not that guy. He's a different coach now. And truthfully, I'm here for it, and Alouettes Nation should be here for it as well.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, do you really think it would have made any difference defensive-wise and even score-wise if Mason Fine had not left the game with a hamstring and basically turned over the duties to Jake Dolegala?
It's hard to say, really, because, I mean, a lot of people were clamoring for Jake Dolegala to be playing and even starting. A lot of people were not too happy with Mason Fine and felt he was just, fine, and thought that Dolegala would be the much better choice. But in fairness to Dolegala, he was kind of thrown in last minute, and the Alouettes just feasted on him, quite frankly. They definitely made it a very long night for him. Forcing turnovers, INTs. I mean, it was a rough go for the young man, and it happens. I mean, as they say, some days you're the dog, some days you're the hydrant, and Saskatchewan was definitely the hydrant last Friday against this incredibly dangerous Montreal Alouettes defense. That was good going into this game and just keeps getting better, quite frankly.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing we need to remember too is that when we're looking at the receiving stats, because of how few passes that Caleb Evans actually threw, it's funny to see the number of receptions by most of of our big name guys. Most of them were held to one, except for Tyson Philpott that got 3 receptions. But the thing is that if you're just to read that without looking at anything else and thinking, well, this game sucked. Well, that's not even the case, because just look at the amount of yards that each of these guys got with their single catch, which is absolutely mind-blowing.
Absolutely. And Austin Mack, I mean, he had 1 catch too, but what a catch. I mean, so
perfectly placed by Caleb Evans over the defender. Perfectly placed.
My goodness, that was just a thing of beauty. And he had so much time and space in the pocket to work with. I mean, guy could have got his taxes done while he was there. He had that much time. Just kind of a little flick of the wrist, and floop, there you go. Here you go, Austin Mack. Have a touchdown. And of course, like, Austin Mack's going to grab that and take it to the house. And it was just a thing of beauty. And we were joking with him last week as well. I'm like, my God, I mean, that kind of percentage. I mean, man, I can't wait to see your PFF scores, because he's going to be through the roof. I mean, 1 catch, but it's for a touchdown. So,
what's funny though, dude, is that you see Austin's stat line. 1 reception on 2 targets for 56 yards. And that touchdown, his longest being 56. The funny thing is, though, we actually had a player who led the team in yardage, didn't get the touchdown, but he had a hell of a lot longer catch. That happened to be Walter Fletcher. Even with all of his running that he did, Fletch had that 1 catch for 68 yards.
Yeah, and it does count as a pass, folks. That's the hilarious part. Even though Fletch did all the work with his feet, just running. And oh my gosh, I have to say this again about Austin Mack. Shout out to Mack for that incredible pancake block to help Fletcher get a few extra yards. I mean, again, guy's a receiver and he's throwing pancakes. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But that's what's so incredible about this team right now is everybody is pitching in, and as they say, a rising tide lifts all boats, and everybody is eating as a result. And it's just a thing of beauty. It's like you wonder, okay, who's going to step up when you got certain guys that are out due to injury? Well, you're seeing that. You're seeing the next man up mentality on this team, and it's fantastic. Like this was a game that we thought it would be kind of close. We thought it would be kind of like, we didn't think it was going to be an absolute blowout like it was. But I mean, again, Montreal definitely controlled all 3 phases of the football. They got their stars going, and just for Caleb Evans to come in and be able to do that, especially like he had his first couple of years in the league were rough in Ottawa, but it almost felt like he came into the right system for him here in Montreal, and nobody was expecting too much. It was a simple matter of just do your job, don't make any mistakes, and these guys are going to help you. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened with Caleb Evans.
Yeah, for sure. Final stat line, Caleb Evans, 8 of 13 for 149 yards, that 1 interception in the red zone right after the Alouettes had gotten the ball on a turnover themselves and 1 TD. Caleb also had 11 attempts for 66 yards. He himself ran off a 27-yarder. Had 2 rushing touchdowns. Jeshua Nantwi, 7 attempts, 47 yards, and his first CFL tutty. Congrats, obviously, to Jeshua.
Big shout out to Jeshua, man, because this is another guy that has he's seen the lowest of the lows and the highest of the highs in his very short time here in Montreal.
Oh yeah, I'm sure everybody, especially you and I, remember that infamous game back in 2021. Yeah, 2021. Yeah, where the game ended on a fumble, with the Owls driving versus Ottawa. I remember.
Yeah,
but that's all in the past now.
We've come a long way from that game, and I'm so proud of Jeshua for finally being able to get that tutty. And he said he was going to give the ball to his son, his newborn son. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I mean, that's what it's all about, folks. And hopefully this is the first of many for Jeshua. And once again, not having William Stanback in the lineup, is tough and would decimate a lot of teams. But Montreal Alouettes, man, they just find a way to keep on going. If Stanback goes down, then you know you've got Fletcher. You know you got Antwi back there as well. And they're going to do great things if you give them the opportunity. And last Friday was proof positive of that.
Yep. Walter Fletcher, 15 attempts, 73 yards. His longest was 20. And we'll talk about the wide receivers. Walter did lead the team in yards for receiving at 68 on that one catch. Then it was Austin Mack on that one catch for 56 yards. And then it went to Tyson Philpott, 3 receptions for 16 yards. Tyler Snead got into the game, 1 for 15. Rita Sivasu -4 and Chandler with -2. But I mean, those two plays themselves were negative plays. The defense, I will admit, it's one of the few positives for the Saskatchewan defense. Those were the 2 plays that they really, really were ready.
Yeah. No, it was a tough night for the Riders and such, but they made a couple nice plays happen, and they managed to put points on the board as well. I mean, that's the thing too, is that yes, Montreal. You look at the score, and they absolutely dog walked the Riders, but I mean, it really was a defense. Like the defenses both came out to play. It's just that Montreal's defense just played a little bit better. Mm-hmm. That's some nights. That's really truly how it goes. Especially when it's like Riders and Alouettes. I mean, but these are always fun games to watch, and there's always something to see in every game, whether it's at Percival Molson Stadium or at Mosaic Stadium. You know that when these two teams get together, it's going to be more often than not. It's going to be a fun, entertaining tilt, and I'm sure Rider fans wouldn't agree, but last Friday's game was pretty damn entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. And we got to talk about the defense, obviously. Sean Lemon got himself another quarterback sack, so he's well on the road to getting up to 100 total in his CFL career. Avery Ellis had a quarterback sack. And then a guy that we've been hyping up for the last couple of weeks did it again. Keep calm and Ento. No, it's the other way around. Keep calm and Kabian Ento. There we go. Had that interception, another interception, and then Tyrese Beverett with that fumble return for 25 yards for a scoop and score.
Yeah. No, absolutely incredible how this. And I've got to give a major shout out to Reggie Stubblefield. This guy. Wow, he came so close to having not 1, not 2, but 3 picks. I mean, they end up counting as pass breakups or PBUs, but he should have had a couple of picks himself last Friday. Mm-hmm. To the point where, like, we even said on Twitter, "You owe us push-ups, man, because you should have had those." and absolutely incredible. What a game for Stubblefield, because let's not forget, Tim, this guy was in training camp, played extremely well, but unfortunately, the numbers game led to him being one of the final cuts, and he could have gotten down about it, and he could have let it, get the better of him. But he just stayed ready. That's what it is, folks. Like, you gotta stay ready, because a couple of injuries pop up, and next thing you know, they're calling you because, hey, you were in camp, you know the playbook, you know how Coach Thorpe works. You can come and be a part of this.
Yeah.
And now I just don't see any scenario where you take this guy off the field, because he is just playing electric football, just absolutely outstanding. And it almost feels like it's just going to be a matter of time before he gets a pick 6 of his own, or just makes an absolutely outstanding play.
Yeah.
Again, Reggie, we're so proud of you, man. That's the good stuff right there.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, we were speaking of Coach Thorpe. We were talking to Coach Thorpe post game about Kabian and the actual switch that they made, and he obviously, Coach Thorpe said all the right things, because I'm sure I don't know who had the real hand in switching out Kabian to the other side of the field, but whatever it was, Coach Thorpe and the other defensive coordinators really did make that right choice.
Yeah, and sometimes that's all it is. And we had talked about this a few times already over the past few weeks, about players that came in and just didn't fit right away, but you'd make a certain change, or you change their position, or even something as simple as, going from the boundary to the field side, and that makes all the difference in the world. We saw it with Darius Pickett. We saw it with Wesley Sutton last year. And this year with Cabianento, my goodness, what a turnaround! Ever since coming back from the bye week, I mean, he's a completely different player. And my good, like, I don't know if I'd call it comeback player of the year, but wow, the 180 this guy has done is sensational. And Coach Thorpe recognizes that. He realizes that, and you can tell that he's proud of all of these guys. But I mean, I think there's a little part of him that is just extremely pleased with what he's seen out of Cabianento over the past couple of weeks. And it's just a simple matter of he's got to keep it going. He's got to keep making those plays because he's going to become a household name. If he keeps playing like this, keeps playing outstanding football like he has been over the past couple of weeks, there's no question in my mind he is definitely going to be one of those pillars on the Alouettes defense for many years to come.
Yeah, and by the way,
even to the point. Sorry, even to the point where I'd even mentioned to Coach Thorpe about how on the podcast we've been talking about how badly the Alouettes should be absolutely going out and getting Patrick Levels, and I still believe that. But now it's almost like, well, go out and get him, but he'd be more of a depth piece than anything else because these guys are stepping up. They are answering the call. This is their opportunity to show that they can play in this league, and they've been absolutely they have been answering the bell every single time. And again, it's any chance you get to shut my mouth, guys, feel free to do so. Like that's really what it comes down to is just stepping up and making big plays happen. And that's what these guys like the J.R. Reeds, the Cabianentos, the Reggie Stubblefields, guys that y'all didn't know about until just recently, but now you're learning about these guys, and it's such a great thing to see.
I was, we've had so many issues on defense. A lot of the guys with all the injuries and stuff like that. And I'm looking at some of these guys, and they're finally standing out on the on the stat sheet. And obviously, stats don't necessarily mean everything, based on how many tackles you have or whatever. But one that really stood out, or that at least one, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, and if you know, Cliff, please correct me. Former number one pick, Tyrell Richards. I think he actually set a career high in tackles for a game. He had 5 last week, but I mean, you just look at it across the board. Beverett had 8. J.R. Reed had 7. Cordell Rogers had 5. I mean, again, it's just across the board. It's not really a plug and play defense. These guys have been here long enough, and as everybody will see when we do get to the interview with Wes Sutton, it doesn't seem to be a what can I do for me. It's what can I do for the team type of thing. So again, you guys will hear that once we get to the actual interview.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to use the term "drink the Kool-Aid," but that's essentially what they've done. Is they've bought into the system here in Montreal and have been just absolutely sensational. Like they are making plays happen. Not perfect, of course. I still find sometimes they get beat a little bit, especially out in the flats. But I mean, you saw what happened, and they just made life miserable for both Mason Fine and Jake Dolegala. The Riders do have some talent on offense, and for the most part, they were just pretty well shut down. I think even more impressive, though, is, like, just to veer off a little bit, is on special teams. Mario Alford, we were worried. Oh my God, this guy's going to go off. Especially if this is the first time he's faced his team since being traded to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And aside from one really nice run, he didn't really do anything. Like he got bottled up by the special teams. So
5 punt returns for 37 yards. That's it.
You got to give credit to Byron Archambault and the guys on specials. They did what they had to do, and the Riders just didn't have a whole lot of good starting position really for their offense. So I mean, be able to keep a superstar like Mario Alford, who we always talk about, like Mario Alford, Chandler Worthy, those are two guys that are absolutely dangerous if given the time and space. And simply put, Alford did not get a whole lot of time and space to do what he does best. So that's a huge credit to the special teams work that's been put in. And yeah, even though Chandler Worthy had a couple of nice runs, but wasn't able to get a whole lot going. Tyson Philpott also too had a couple of nice returns, but by and large, we're still waiting for one of those two guys to have that breakout and get the house call. But maybe it'll come this coming Saturday against Ottawa. Maybe it'll come later on, but it's coming. I was honestly surprised we didn't see it against Saskatchewan, but especially too since they elected to start the game on defense, and basically that means kicking off right away to Chandler Worthy. And we know what you remember what happened last year when that happened. Chandler took the very first play, the opening kickoff. He took it back to the house. So I was ready. I'm like, okay, Chandler, let's see if history can repeat itself. But lo and behold, it did not happen. But once again, credit to this special teams unit. They've been doing some outstanding work, and man, that just comes back to what I said. Like all three facets of football, the Alouettes dominated in a big way this past Friday.
Yeah, for sure. And one other thing I want to talk about real quickly that encompasses the game itself, because before we get to our interview with Wes Sutton, is specifically the crowd. Sure, it was only an announced attendance of 17,027, which was down from the previous game. But what many people may not know is that considering the amount of events that were going on in Montreal that night, that 17,000 was ruckus, was loud. It was as if that place had almost, a normal 20,000 people within the stadium itself. But props to everybody who showed up despite all the logistical issues that were put upon them with all those different, all those different events that were being held in Montreal that night and this past weekend.
Yeah, it was crazy. Just what would normally be a 20-minute drive for me ended up being 45 minutes. Just to give you an example. I mean, and even though the Alouettes always encourage you to take public transport, but I mean, just trying to get around the city this past weekend was an exercise in patience, to be said. And the fact that yes, you're right, 17,000 did show up. I know a lot of Rider fans actually made the trip from Saskatchewan down to see the Alouettes play. And a shout out to them because, they came, they supported their team, and, obviously wasn't the result they were looking for. I mean, I'm sure they would have at least, if you're going to lose, at least lose in a competitive match. And this, I'm sorry to say, was not a very competitive match for Saskatchewan. But shout out to these fine folks for making the trip down as well. And for everybody that came out and supported and made noise at the right time, and just everything. Especially with it being country night. I mean, I can take or leave a theme like that, but at least they played country roads. I was totally expected not to for reasons, but they did play country roads, and everybody got to sing along. So
yeah, right after a commercial break, we came in singing the song, and I know there were a few people on social media that actually did comment that they did hear us singing country roads on TV. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it kind of got overshadowed by the fact that was Alfred's one really nice return. But we were too busy singing to really take notice until after, like, maybe we should stop this guy, and then they did. So
exactly. As I mentioned before at the top of the show, Cliff, we got a pretty good interview, don't we?
Absolutely. So. We've been wanting to talk to Wesley for a while, and we were very fortunate to be able to have him on this evening. As I said, kind of short but sweet, but we definitely got a lot of good info out of him. Definitely got to learn a little bit more about this young man, and I mean the absolutely fantastic job he's been doing for the Alouettes over the past couple of seasons. I mean, it's second to none as far as I'm concerned. So I say, without any further ado, let's get into our chat with Wesley Sutton.
On the line with us this week is the gentleman who has been an integral part of what has been a very great Alouettes defense. We want to find out a little bit more about him, how he got into football, and what he's obviously about the 2023 Alouettes franchise. On the line with us now, number 37, defensive back, Wesley Sutton. Hey, Wesley, thanks for joining us.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Hey, Wes, we want to find out about how you got into football. I mean, was there anything in particular that led you to, joining and becoming a football player all those years ago? I mean, was it a family member? Was it somebody that you had looked up to that suggested going into football? How did you become the football player that you are right now?
I would give my father. played football growing up in New York. He played college football. He had a college football career. He had a couple tryouts with the New England Patriots and the New York Giants. It was kind of a old school tryout. You know, they sent him a letter. They're like, hey, meet at this place. We want you to kind of put on a workout, or we're going to put you through a workout. But nothing ever came from that. So, but it was always something that I kind of kept near and dear to my heart because, you know, he always tells me stories about his football career and college accolades and college success in football. And just growing up, hearing him, you know, we always watch football together, NFL games and things of that nature. I grew up a New York Giants fan because both my parents are from New York, and my dad said from there as well. So, grew up a Giants fan, loving football, fell in love with it just ever since I started playing.
That's cool. I mean, we've talked to many other players that have been on that are currently on the Alouettes roster too, Wes. And did you just play football as a kid, or because I've spoken to others and they've been multi-sport players, but was it always just football for you?
No, yeah, I was a multi-athlete as well. I played basketball and I also ran track. I ran track in my junior year of high school. Basketball, I stopped a lot sooner, but I was a three-sport athlete, more so track and football.
Okay. We do know, obviously, we know you went to high school at Chandler High. I think they have a pretty good pedigree, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to being known as, when it comes to high school football. And you also then went to college over at Northern Arizona. Quickly, let us know, how was your experience when you were playing for the Lumberjacks?
It was a great experience. You know, that was where I played my college football, so there was a lot of great memories from there. Long 4 years. You know, I just really grew as a player and as a man there, being away from the family and being on my own and things like that. But it was always a great experience, any championships or anything like that. So I don't have any bragging rights in that area, but my college career was very fun.
You weren't chosen originally in the draft in 2019, but you did play for a short period of time before the canceled season with the New York Guardians in the XFL. But I want to know now is that when you were approached, or actually who told you about the CFL and the Alouettes? Had you ever heard of the CFL? And what was your initial thought on the actual Canadian game itself?
The person who told, I had seen CFL football games on, I don't know that, I don't remember exactly when, but just on TV. Like, I don't remember how old I was at the time, but I remember seeing a couple games on TV. I remember when Johnny Manziel came over to the Alouettes. That was, I think, honestly, when I first saw the Canadian football game, just because Johnny Manziel was obviously a big icon coming out of college and into the pros and things of that nature in the football world. So I feel like that's when I saw my first game. I then obviously didn't hear much about it. And then Coach Baron Miles, who really introduced me to the CFL football game. Just the game itself, the game, like I said, as a whole, and also him being a Hall of Famer and having all of the success he did for a tenured period of time. Just learning from him helped me out tremendously. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew I wanted to play football, and that opportunity came up basically through him giving me a shot, kind of putting my name out there, and him sticking his neck out for me. And yeah, that's pretty much how I learned the game. Basically told me about the Alouettes, and I obviously still didn't know a lot until I came up here and had to experience it for myself.
Yeah, and speaking of, obviously you get here for your very first training camp. It's not held in Montreal that year. I'm trying to remember if 21 it was. I don't think it was held in
Montreal.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's right after, within the COVID era itself. But what were your initial thoughts on Montreal, the language, and the language barrier that you had coming in?
During camp, we didn't have much of time to go experience anything. If I did, I didn't know which way to go, really. I was just in this new city. I didn't have a car, so I was pretty much just staying put in the hotel during camp. But when I actually made the team, started exploring, and French language wasn't extremely foreign to me. It wasn't the first time I heard the language because my grandma is originally from France. So growing up, she always she never taught me that, and I don't speak it fluently, but she would greet me with, bonjour, ça va, things like that. And I would respond in the ways that she had taught me. But so it wasn't like super foreign, but I mean, obviously getting up here, it's a whole new experience actually, with it being the dominant language out here. So I think it's fun. I've tried to learn as much as I can. It's fun to be a part of, and even from America, Arizona specifically, they speak obviously predominantly English, but the second language you would say is Spanish, and I took a couple years of Spanish growing up, but I was never understood French to the extent that I somewhat do now, so I'm trying to grow more in it as the years go by that I've been.
And obviously, knowing just a little bit that you had there, Wes, you're already a step ahead of a lot of the American players that came up here already, because I'm sure, as you know, even just speaking, just greeting them as bonjour, as you said, it means a lot to the the kids that you meet and to the other fans. So I'm sure you made an impression immediately, as I said, when you're here in the city. So obviously props to you, bud. Cliff.
So Wesley, we got to know you the 2022 season, starting with the team, and you started out as quarterback, and then you moved to halfback. It was a bit of a struggle at first for you, but I think along the way you got it figured out. And I remember even talking to you about it last year, like how at first things didn't seem like it was clicking, but then all of a sudden, like it almost felt like a switch flipped and you got it down. Was there anything in particular that you can attribute that to, as far as what changed from getting it all of a sudden?
I would say reps. The more that you do it, the better you get at it, especially if that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get better. I knew what type of player that the gifts that I have and that God has blessed me with. I knew that I was capable. I just needed more reps, needed more understanding of the waggle and what type of route, what routes look like off of the waggles, and being able to gauge the waggle and things like that. DB is a very hard position already, and then you add a 10-yard, 8 to 10-yard head start. Gets even harder. So, but just getting reps in practice, Reggie White Jr. all day got me a lot better, and then staying healthy and being able to reach every game last year and be active in every game. You just continue to grow and get those reps under your belt, and finally, it just clicked.
Oh, I'll say. I mean, you end up finishing the season with some incredible numbers. I still think back to that game in Winnipeg, which a lot of people have said was basically the turnaround for the Alouettes, to go from 2-6 all the way to 9-9 and all the way to the Eastern Final. I mean, that to me, I think was. I'm not saying it's all because of you, but if you want to take the credit for it, you're more than welcome to.
No, I'm not gonna take that credit for it, but it was a fun game, that's for sure. Being in that stadium and that atmosphere, it was a lot of fun to be there and come out with the win, especially against an undefeated team at the time.
100%, and also too, they pride themselves on being the loudest fans. But man, after once Legio missed that field goal, you could hear a mouse fart. That's how quiet it was.
Yeah, right. Like a pin drop. It was real quiet.
Exactly. Coming into this season, Wes, you had basically stated that you wanted to be your goal was to be the defensive player of the most outstanding defensive player this year. You got off to a heck of a start in Hamilton with that pick six. I mean, that's one way to get people noticing you. From what you've been able to see so far this year, I mean, I know there's still a lot of racetrack left. We're essentially at the halfway point. Do you still see yourself in that position, or do you still think there's more stuff that needs to be worked on in order for you to attain that goal of most outstanding defensive player?
I mean, that's my personal goal, but it's not what wakes me up every day and every morning to go to work. What wakes me up to go is the guys in the locker room and us as a whole, winning. That's what I'm here to do, and that's what I want to continue to achieve. But when you talk about personal goals, I also, expect the best for myself, and I want to consider myself to be as one of the best. And if I don't have that mindset, if I don't have, that type of goal, I feel like I'm selling myself short. So it's not, it's not anything that I'm breaking my head over. If it doesn't happen, that's not like, if we win, we're winning playoff games, we're going to the Grey Cup, and I leave with the cup, that's 100 times better than an individual trophy. It's not something that I'm like really pressed about. They asked me that question, and even like kind of looking back, saying that they kind of not twisted. I'm not gonna say they twisted it, but they made it. Me watching it, and I was like, that kind of sounded real, like, and selfish in a kind of way. And I'm a real selfish guy, so it's just personal goal. That's always, I want to consider myself to be the best. Like I said, I'm gonna always believe that I can achieve the highest of goals in this sport. But as a whole, I'm good. We're 5-3. We're second in the East. It's not where we want to be, but I'm grateful for the run that we're on right now. And like I said, when we hang that Grey Cup over our head at the end as the champion, that'll be 100 times sweeter than an individual trophy.
Well, that's what we're hoping for too, my man. I mean, that's something that we haven't had since 2010, and I think Alouettes fans are long overdue for a Grey Cup party.
Definitely.
Fun fact, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but do you know that you're not the only Sutton to have worn number 37 for the Alouettes?
I am not. I know Coach Tyrell Sutton. I don't know I know he played running back. I don't think he was 37, or was that him that wore 37? He's the only Sutton that's familiar with that played for that.
Well, you're on the right track. Actually, his first year breaking into the league, he wore number 37.
Oh, wow, that's funny.
Yeah. I mean, he ended up switching to 20, but he's technically the first, and I guess so. Now you're carrying on the legacy for him. So I don't know if he's ever mentioned it to you or not. I'm guessing not, because
No, yeah, he never mentioned that to me. Just us having the same last name. Like, we joke around, and when we address each other, like, we say, "What's up, cuzzo?" Like, cousin. Just we have the same last name, but he's never told me about him wearing 37. I'm gonna ask him about that tomorrow. Matter of fact, and have a little laugh with him, because I didn't know that.
Oh, and then he's going to ask, who told you? And then you're going to say, I sound like, those sons of bitches.
Hey, man, you're a popular guy, man. Watching you ball, and somebody mentioned it to me. So,
all right, we won't keep too much longer, Wes. But obviously, big game coming up against Ottawa. As you said, this team right now, the momentum is running high right now. Everything's going. It seems like everything's starting to finally click for this defense. And you guys have been playing absolutely outstanding football. How do you guys keep it going? Like, what motivates you? Besides, obviously, the obvious goal of getting to the Grey Cup and everything, but how do you guys keep each other motivated every day throughout practice and that?
Just dominance is addicting. So like, when you dominate, it's an addicting feeling. It's something that you feel inside, especially a group of people dominating. It gets very addictive, and just every day we come to work. That's our goal and our standard is to dominate, and is to get the game plan down and understand where we're supposed to be, and executing the calls. Just having fun as a defense. Defense wins championships, and I solely believe that. And going back to what I was saying about me watching football with my dad all the time, he always, although he was a Giants fan, loved watching the Baltimore Ravens. And, he's a big defensive guy. He played safety growing up, and he's a physical guy, So watching the Baltimore Ravens defense growing up, like, they were physical from top to bottom. They were dominant. They believed they were best. Like, and when they walked in the arena into the stadium, you knew they were there. And that's something that keeps us going, just that want to. And, especially with Coach Dork, who's a guy that's easy to play for. Just makes it fun, makes it easy. And we want to obviously continue to keep that going, because helped our team. We got to do our part of the defense.
100%. All right, Wesley, we've taken up far too much of your time already. We definitely appreciate you coming on and joining us. How does everybody find you on social media?
Instagram is Can't Stop West. Can't Stop West 1, and also Twitter as well. The same thing. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Love the Alouettes fans. I'm all for it. Give me a follow, and I'm a guy that'll follow you back.
There you go. You heard it, Alouettes Nation. So that's your man right there, Wesley Sutton. Wes, thanks again so much for joining us here on the Alouettes Flight Deck. We appreciate you, and we're looking forward to seeing you and the guys go out to Ottawa, do your thing, and come back home with that W, won't you?
Yes, we will. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
I still love hearing how these guys got into football and what makes them tick. And obviously, Wes has made a name for himself in Montreal, and we're hoping, obviously, that he'll be with us on the team for quite a while.
Oh, 100%. As I've said on numerous occasions, he has really stepped up and become an integral part of this Alouettes defense. He's done a phenomenal job. And again, the way that things are going right now, with the work that he's been putting in and the absolutely outstanding plays that he's been a part of, yeah, I could definitely see him being in the discussion for most outstanding defensive player. I hope for his sake it happens. And, we'd be thrilled as hell to know that, going to the CFL Awards later this year and seeing Wesley Sutton there as the Eastern nominee would be extremely, extremely cool. So here's hoping that's the case. Wes, once again, thanks so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, give him a follow on social media and, get on board with this young man because he is going places and he wants to bring you with him.
Exactly. Want to do a quick follow-up to something that I brought up last week, and we got a little bit more information on it. A small update itself. I know we were talking about, Cliff, about how we had noticed that Coach Moss had been wearing recently some sort of logo which has all these different symbolisms on it and stuff like that. And we were hoping to speak with Coach Moss to get some more, some insight into what some of the stuff was. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get the information, but there's more of a reason why. It's because we basically can say, from what we heard from Coach Moss, is that everything will come out sooner or later on what it actually means, and there will be a full. But from what it sounds like, there's going to be a full description of what everything means on this logo. Because from what we saw, Cliff, this logo, and I can tell you this is something that he has never done before in his career as a coach. He's really this logo and the symbolism really means a lot to him.
Yeah, and he talked about the fact that it's meant to include everybody here in Montreal and in Quebec, and anyone who's associated with the Alouettes. Like there's a lot of little nods to the past and little Easter eggs, if you will, to stuff that true Alouettes fans will know, recognize, and appreciate. And he wanted to put his own sort of individual stamp on this team, and obviously with coaching that he's done so far this year, I think he has done a lot of that. But just to sort of symbolize it a little bit with his logo, and I know it sounds very cryptic and stuff, but as he stated, because he's just like when it comes to choosing his starting quarterback last Friday, keeping his cards very close to the vest, and
even this week in his media scrum. Yeah,
that's true too. But he basically said all will be revealed, and all will be explained. So it's just one of those. Stay tuned, folks, because it's pretty neat, and to know that Coach Moss has this, need and desire to be a part of Alouettes Nation and to fully embrace being the head coach of this team and getting people to buy into this team and getting his players involved in this as well. It's great. I mean, this is what truly makes a strong locker room. This is what makes people want to play for this guy. People want to, do well for Coach Moss. It's stuff like this that really checks off all the boxes as far as I'm concerned. So I'm excited to see what the future is going to hold for this. I'm really curious to see the explanation, hear it, and also too for each and every one of you to see what the hell we're talking about, because we've seen it and it's
just look. You
it's
have
intriguing.
to look when you see Coach Moss on TV. Just look. Supposedly, this logo is going to show up more and more within the on the team itself and on players. So you will see it. As I said, if they ever show a picture of Coach Moss there on television or even in one of his scrums, look, you'll see the logo itself. It may not be that clear. I said same thing to us. It may not be that clear, but there's a lot behind it. So there's more. Again, we can't wait till the information comes out. Post-game, Cliff, we got to speak with a couple of the players. We can give a slight update on Keon Julian Grant on his status. Originally, we thought that his injury itself was when he dislocated his finger. That wasn't the case. We actually got a quick update because he was in a cast, and we did find out that it had to do with a hit that he took to his, I guess we can say to his around his wrist area in the same game. So that's what he's dealing with. Obviously, he wants to be back on the field. It was, you could tell that he really wanted to be on the field, but he was proud in how his teammates were able to step up and to, help during the time that he's out of the lineup.
Oh, definitely. And we've talked about like just how important this receiving core is. Like a lot of people were sleeping on them throughout the off season, and there was a lot of who the heck is this guy kind of thing. But I mean, Keon knew, the talent that was in the locker room when it came to the wide receivers, and I know it's got to be killing him to not be able to get out there and put on his uniform and make outstanding plays happen. He wants to be a part of that so bloody bad. But you know what? If you're going to get injured, this is the time to do it. Heal up and be ready for the playoff run because, I mean, barring something catastrophic, I mean, the way this Alouettes team is trending, it's not a matter of if they'll be in the playoffs. It's when and potentially where they'll be playing that playoff game.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing that I want to at least mention before I see if there are any more thoughts from you about post-game is that we were able to speak with Al's president, Mark Waitman, and he wanted to make sure that that he told us expect big things at the next home game, especially with the Alouettes giving accolades to all of the former Montreal Pro Football members who are inducted into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. He wanted to stress specifically that this is something in his mind that is going to be done the right way. I kind of brought up the thing about with John Bowman originally when he was here, when it was, with the COVID restrictions, et cetera, and in what did or did not happen when he was here initially to celebrate his career. But again, Mark wanted to say, anybody who's going to be at that game, or if you are thinking of or need a reason to go to the game in a couple of weeks, halftime show will be supposedly one to remember, and one that people will leave remembering what was done on the field. So I just can't wait. Just hearing, just seeing who we have, who they're going to be looking at, and who they're going to be honoring. I can't wait for that game versus the BC on September 2nd.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because John Bowman will be at that game, not as a guest of the Alouettes, but rather as a coach of the BC Lions. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see him get honored as well as he should. There's no question about that. But the fact that he'll be doing it while as a member of the BC Lions will be interesting to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's for sure. But again, it's anything before we head to the preview of this week's game versus Ottawa. Anything else that you took away from post game?
I mean, you could just tell the energy, the excitement. There's a lot of feeling like, okay, this is for real. This team is for real. And despite the setbacks, despite the injuries, despite any number of reasons why the Alouettes could have lost this game, like there was simply they were not having any of that. It was just a simple matter of, okay, you know what you have to do, just go out and do it. And that's exactly what this team did. That's why they got the win, was because they went out, they did their job and did it extremely well. And that was the sense I got from talking to the players afterwards, was like this, that good feeling, the momentum is still with this team and it's still going on. I mean, it's like, my goodness, Tim, like we're sitting at 5-3, second place. And honestly, like I know Toronto just is just so difficult to beat. I mean, but they are beatable. I mean, we could see a true dogfight between Montreal and Toronto, like going towards the end of the season, and it's going to be fun. Like, that's the thing, is like this is going to be fun right now. Like the entire East Division is, as far as I'm concerned, like they're not the least division anymore. They are definitely the East Division. There's so much to like. There's so much competition, and man, I mean, I know they say the CFL season doesn't truly get started until Labor Day, but for what the Alouettes have been able to do so far, and really making their case as being one of the top tier teams in this league, it's fantastic. It is something that I wouldn't say you and I expected it to happen, but we saw what's been going on throughout the offseason. We saw all the moves that was made. We saw the work that was put in during training camp and into the start of the season. And a lot of people are surprised, but I think you and I were kind of looking at it as like, this is more or less what we expected out of this team. And even when they made mistakes, like, okay, they're correctable. These are, it's not like they keep making the same mistake over and over again. And that's the reason why they lost. I mean, simply put, those 3 losses were against arguably 3 of the best teams of the Canadian Football League. So that's nothing to be ashamed of. I think that this Alouettes team is definitely opening a lot of eyes league-wide. And a lot of people will have no choice but to simply acknowledge that this Alouettes team is for real. They believe in themselves. We believe in them. And now it's just a matter of everybody else is going to have to get on board and start believing as well, because quite frankly, this is a team that is going to be exciting to watch and very, very competitive, especially as the summer turns to fall and things start getting serious in this league. There's just so much to love, and there's so much to be appreciative of when it comes to this team. It's just, it does my heart good. I guess that's the best way to put it, is it does my heart good to see this team so cohesive and competitive and just ready to go out each and every game day and just play outstanding football. And you really, truly can't ask for more than that.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Alouettes, because the CFL transaction wire is still broken, we were able to find out through a press release that the Alouettes actually did sign another quarterback, signed him onto the practice roster. It's 24-year-old American Reese Udinsky. He played over at the University of Richmond. It was mentioned, I think, mentioned in the paper today, that, you know, this has nothing to do with Cody Fajardo, the current situation with Cody Fajardo. This is something they had always said that they wanted to bring in another quarterback for the practice squad. Any thoughts on Udinsky? I haven't seen much of his tape, but obviously, you know, for him throwing 29 touchdowns, 3,600 yards in his last year, in his career with Richmond. So you can't complain.
No, definitely. And another big body, 6'4", 224. I mean, I'm not expecting him to replace Caleb Evans as far as short yardage goes, but also doesn't hurt to have another big body presence under center. Yeah, definitely someone that's, if given the right environment, definitely could learn a lot playing in this league. Definitely could learn a lot from Anthony Calvillo, of course. Being a finalist too for the Walter Payton Trophy is nothing to sneeze at as well. So I mean, there's definitely some nice potential here. So how much of an opportunity he's going to get, only time's going to tell. But I guess a lot will depend on how Fajardo's quote unquote injury situation is. Will he get a chance to dress? I truly don't know. I guess as long as Jason Moss and the coaching staff continue to try and play mind games as far as will Cody start, will he not?
Yeah.
I guess it makes it really hard to say, but listen, I hope this young man does well, and he's here to learn. I think, and he's in a great environment. He's going to be surrounded by some great coaches that can teach him, and it really will come down to him. Like, how bad does he want it? And will he get a chance to show what he can do? I sincerely hope so.
Yeah. Speaking of Cody and different players and stuff like that, the Alouettes are heading to Ottawa this weekend to play the Red Blacks. The Alouettes are currently listed as a 2.5 point favorite, a road favorite too, man. 2.5 point favorite. The over/under is listed currently at 47. Some of the very interesting things specifically are coming out of the last 2 days of practice. And by the way, people don't sneeze at this. The Alouettes have won the last 7 in Ottawa. This is Ottawa, who dominated in Montreal, but this is also Montreal, who's been dominating in Ottawa. So it's still, they've been all great matches. Obviously, the last 7 games. I mean, but still, injury report itself is and we talked about Cody Fajardo already. Last 2 days he's been limited, Cliff. One of the interesting things, by the way, one of the very interesting things on this actual injury report comes from Brock Gowanlock. Everybody remember that name? Remember the hit that he made during the preseason that caused a fumble, which was just absolutely amazing? His shoulder. He's off the 6th game, dude, and he's been a full participant for the last 2 days.
And that's fantastic. Especially, like, you look at this defensive line, and yeah, there's some absolute studs on there. And the addition to Sean Lemon, as we've talked about, has just upped everybody's game considerably. And you almost have to wonder, like, okay, at what point is Brock Gowanlock going to be able to get in there and get some honest to goodness reps? And I would love to see him in there, just simply because he is definitely a difference maker. As you alluded to, the heavy hitter potential is there for sure. He will not look out of place alongside of a Sean Lemon or Jamal Davis or Lowell Ugolak. If you could find a way to get Gowanlock into this lineup, which is already very stout and very dangerous to start with, that's just going to make a good thing even better. So I sincerely hope, if there's a way that you can get Gowanlock dressed and in the lineup against Ottawa, that's just going to make life so much easier. And Noel Thorpe, of course, is just going to be licking his chops even further, going up against his former employer, the Ottawa Red Blacks. Yeah,
that's true. As we mentioned before, Cody Fajardo, he's been limited for the first, the last 2 days of practice. Wayne Stanback is back. It seems to be back practicing. He has been a full participant. Armando Sewell, which we know just came back last week after an injury. He was limited today, but he was a full practice on Tuesday. So we'll see what that leads to. Christian Matt, though, Cliff actually this thing has a knee injury. He hasn't practiced for the past 2 days at all. So we'll have to find out what his game status will be when the depth charts. We'll see. Tomorrow, and then the depth charts on Friday. Austin Mack did not practice today, even though he was a full participant yesterday. Reggie Stubblefield, the guy we were talking about earlier, he was limited today after being did not practicing at all on Tuesday. Any names on here that you expected to see and do not? Like, for me, it would be like Greg Ellingson. Is he or is he not off the 6th game? Because remember, I think last week was it last week he practiced, or the week prior he did practice? So, we haven't seen his name pop up in potentially 2 games.
No, and again, I have to wonder is if Ellingson's ever truly going to see action in an Alouettes uniform, because you look at the receivers that this team has, and even with Keon Julian Grant on the 6th game. You look at the young studs that are there, and I just don't see how you can sit any one of them for Ellingson, even if he is healthy and ready to go. So I can't help but wonder if maybe it's just a simple matter of, okay, yeah, Ellingson's on the team, but to what end? He does lend a veteran presence without question, and I'm sure that he's even been acting as a bit of a coach for a lot of these young guys, like just showing them the ropes and how to perform in this league, and that is extremely valuable. But
yeah, we did see him on the sidelines last game, so he is making his presence known. That's the good thing as a longtime vet.
Sure, but this is a young man's game too, and I have to wonder though, if will we ever see Greg Ellingson line up in the Alouettes in a regular season game? I just don't know. Yeah. I really truly don't know.
What are we looking at for this game? As I said, yes, sir, the Alouettes have won the last 7 in Ottawa, but some of them have been close games, and this obviously is not the same Ottawa team that the Alouettes played back in Week 1.
It definitely isn't, and a lot of that comes down to two words: Dustin Crum. This guy has come literally out of nowhere. Well, I guess unless you consider the MAC conference in college football somewhere, and a lot of people do. I'm not dissing it by any means. I love me some action as well, but Dustin Crum has come in and really given hope again to these to our nation and this Red Blacks team. You never feel like they're completely out of a game. Like a couple of games earlier this year, they were just getting embarrassed, but I couldn't get anything going. But I mean, they've been competitive, even in losses. They've been very competitive. I mean, this is definitely not a team you can sleep on by any stretch. I'm curious to see how this Noel Thorpe defense does against Crum and the Red Blacks, because they're looking to feast. And as far as they're concerned, this is just another young quarterback that everybody seems to think, oh, okay, they're going to show. This is going to be the guy. This is going to be a guy that's going to show up the Alouettes. And hey, good luck to you, because this defense, as far as I'm concerned, is top tier without question. As far as I'm concerned, this is a top tier defense, and Dustin Crum is definitely going to have his work cut out for him. It's also going to be kind of a homecoming, if you will, for Caleb Evans, returning to his former stomping grounds. Mm-hmm. Whether or not he gets to start, again, as we said, they're still liking to play the mind games a little bit with this. But if he does start, he's going to be motivated. He's going to be amped, especially coming off a big win over the Saskatchewan Roughriders. He's going to want to go into TD Place and once again just give a gentle reminder to the Red Blacks, like, I was here and y'all didn't think enough of me to keep me around. So, I expect him to have a good game and to really show off and make some outstanding plays happen. I look at this game, and I mean, it's not going to be a gimme by any stretch. I for either team, but I think Montreal, though, has just the momentum right now is off the charts. The defense absolutely on point, and this offense, I mean, whether it's on the ground or through the air, they're definitely making plays happen, and they're going to have to bring that, quite frankly, to Ottawa, because their defense too is dangerous enough and can definitely make plays happen too. So really, truly, I don't think Montreal is looking past this team. I know they've got a tough game against Winnipeg next Thursday, but I don't think they're looking past Ottawa at all. I think they want to go and they want to cement themselves even further. And with the Argos on a bye week, they can make up a little bit of ground there as well. So there's definitely motivation for both teams to win this game. But I just see Montreal wanting to come in and just, based on the fact of how well they've been playing as of late, they got to keep it going. Simply put, they got to keep it going and keep everybody on notice as far as how truly good this football team is.
Yeah, that's for sure. And games like this can easily frighten me, because I've mentioned it many, many times here on the pod that we've seen in years past where it looks like the Alouettes have looked beyond an actual opponent, specifically in Ottawa, and they just the outcome is not what we want it to be. So, but so far so good.
The dreaded trap game.
Yeah, exactly. So far so good from what we've seen. So, I'm looking forward to the game itself. Just to let you fans know that who may be listening in the Ottawa area, the flight deck will be there live. So make sure you reach out to us on socials and let us know where you're going to be. And it's great following the Alouettes on the road, especially in person.
Oh, definitely. As I said earlier this year, I was in Hamilton, watched the Alouettes play absolutely fantastic football there. Always fun going to TD Place, and it's such a great stadium. Great fans over there at our nation as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to being there Saturday to check it out. And I mean, folks, if you're able to, if you're in Montreal, like, jump in the car, head on down the 401, and go support this football team. they deserve it, quite frankly. So, and guess what? It's a Saturday, so you're not working the next day. You don't have school the next day.
Yes,
so,
sir.
you know, instead of going to the cottage or anything like that, hit the road, get some friends together, do the road trip thing, make your way to TD Place, and go support your Montreal Alouettes, folks, on the road. I mean, they deserve it, quite frankly.
Exactly. We are going to be back next week, obviously, to talk about the Ottawa matchup. Just want to remind everybody, though, that yes, usually, Flight Deck Live is broadcast over on our Instagram. Well, stay tuned for potentially the very first Flight Deck Live on A, YouTube page, and B, on our Twitter account. So look out on all of our socials. There should be, once something is actually scheduled, you will see it there. I know on YouTube you will see the link and when we're going to go live. But stay tuned for for the next chapter for the Alouettes Flight Deck when it comes to live broadcasting. And I'm psyched. I'm psyched.
Absolutely. And folks, honestly, truly, the best way to know what's going on is stay subscribed to the Alouettes Flight Deck, whether it's, through social media, whether it's through Twitter /X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. If you're subscribed to the YouTube page, then you're going to get notified immediately when we go live. I mean, that's just how it works.
Or make sure you hit that bell so you know when we go live.
Exactly. I mean, we want you all on board with us as we continue this adventure, as we evolve Flight Deck Live and truly make it, I won't say must-see TV necessary, but I guess must-download TV. I'm not sure. But
it can be still must-watch. It's still must-watch.
That's perfect. That's what I meant. Must-watch TV. Or, well, not even on TV.
I know, but close enough. Close enough.
Just tune in.
Exactly. So stay tuned.
Make sure you're subscribed, and by all means, folks, check it out. Once the game is finished, we'll send out the notification, let you know when we're going live, because we will do it live from the nation's capital and share our thoughts, good, bad, or other, about the game against the Ottawa Red Blacks. So please make sure you're subscribed, make sure you tune in, and just make sure you're following along, folks. However you do it, please make sure you're following along.
Exactly. We appreciate you, everybody who listens to the show and who happens to watch everything that we do and over on YouTube and all of our socials. But again, if it wasn't for you, we'd be talking to ourselves. So, Cliff, I will see you in the nation's capital. And fans, we will speak to you next week. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.